Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the last podcast episode of 2024. I am, happy to say 2024 was a very interesting year. Brought in a few challenges, but it brought in a lot of blessings as well. So overall, I'm going to give 2024, I'm going to give it a B+. But today, guys, I want to talk to you about what is coming down the pipeline for all of us. No one's really going to be excluded from this. And of course, it's going to be a varying degree for each and every one of us, some lesser, some more. But shock, awe, truth, these are going to be major themes, especially over, I would say, the next 5 years or so, and more going past that. But the first 5, I feel, are going to be pretty crazy. And I want to talk to you guys about what that means for you personally, what you might find you're going to be experiencing, but also what we're going to see collectively and why this is happening. Ever since I've gotten into astrology, and been learning it over the years, I've been really kind of paying attention to some of the major events in my life that were absolutely some of the biggest crisis periods of my life and what sort of changes that brought on. And what we're going to be talking about today is how Pluto in Aquarius, now that it is officially there, it's been officially there since November the 19th, but we've now had Venus enter into Aquarius, and she is the first planet to meet with Pluto in its long stay. Like, it is not needing to go back into Capricorn anymore. And Pluto in Aquarius is going to be something where you can each expect that your soul on some level is going to be called to face truth within yourself from a place of what does your heart really want? And what does your heart feel compelled to do? And that's going to be challenged by other people, by society, by the limitations of the world that we live in the minds of those who live in this world. And it's going to be, understand that many people are going to be forced to think in new ways, because we are now coming into a very, very unprecedented time, not just in our lifetimes, but for very, very long times. Like, we're talking millennia. Okay, especially because Pluto moving into Aquarius kind of went into Aquarius while being opposed by Mars, right? So this is bringing in a very interesting dynamic. Now, I'm going to share a little story with you so you guys can understand, but I'm going to share a little bit of a personal insight of what I've personally been through while Pluto was affecting very personal planets of mine, including my ascendant, my Mars, and my Venus, and my nodes, because that's what happened while Pluto was in Capricorn. And I faced some major crisis points that forced me to transform. And with Pluto in Aquarius now, we're going to be seeing that. I want to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about why I believe that if you've been blackpilled from always seeing people get away with things, which has been a very consistent and common theme that we see in our world, that justice really truly isn't served for those who deserve it, going both ways. I believe that that is all going to change now that Pluto is in Aquarius, for a host of different reasons. But a lot of people can get blackpilled and say, well, nothing ever changes. It's never going to be this. I really think this is going to be the defining period of our lives where that narrative is no longer. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the P. Diddy case, the scandal. I'm also going to talk about the recent Blake Lively, Justin, what's his name? Baldoni case that has come forward now, the new lawsuit or complaint, I should say. And I'm going to actually show you Justin's chart on why he's in for a world of hurt. And I don't see him necessarily getting away with anything. And this is why I also don't necessarily see P. Diddy getting away with anything. But I also want to share those things with you, but also for you to understand what this means for you. Because when we think about what is Aquarius, it is the sign of future vision, okay? It is always wanting us to progress, to go beyond what we're used to, definitely going outside the comfort zone, but doing so means you're at risk of ridicule. You're at risk of people not liking you because you're going against the grain. And so how in your life have you been called to maybe go against the grain at the risk of being ostracized, at the risk of being ridiculed, at the risk of, being isolated? So this is something that we're all, to some degree, going to be challenged with going forward over the next 20 years. And of course, because we're in the beginning stages, that's usually when it's going to be a little more painful. Not always, but just kind of rule of thumb. Before I get into that, I also want to say, when we talk about what Aquarius is, it's always looking towards the future. It's the higher mind. Aquarius rules this idea of genius, super high intelligence, but also connection to a higher mind, a higher power, right? And allowing that to come through. So when we have a planet like Pluto in Aquarius, all of us are being challenged to get out of being small-minded and to really expand our horizons of how we think, and allowing for information that is so far beyond our own comprehension, perhaps, to enter into our field so that we can start processing it and perhaps understanding it. This is why so many people who are geniuses are either laughed at, ridiculed, or pushed out of their own peer group because it's going against a certain grain. And a lot of people do that because they just don't see it. They just don't understand it. And it's because we get so ingrained in our own thought processes. We get so ingrained in how we think everything is or should be. And we're all guilty of it to some degree in different areas of our life at different times in our life. I know I most certainly am. And all of that is going to be challenged for us. And so I'm going to kind of share with you a little bit about that. But before I do, considering that we are heading into a new year and, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, yes, it's going to be really challenging us in, it can come across maybe in crisis. Pluto definitely will trigger a crisis, but not necessarily, not always. It can also bring in like these aha moments of genius. And I do believe that, right now we're also going to be learning our own capacity to challenge our own technology. Remember, this human skin suit is your number one technology on this planet. No other technology like it exists. And what we're able to do with this skin suit is only like scratch the surface. And I do believe through these next 20 years, we are going to learn more and more and be in shock and awe at what we are actually capable of doing. And so, one, if you're interested in get like really understanding how to create the future you want, I have my future self formula that I've left the links in the description below, that if you want to join in to that course, it's literally an hour, but I've got a PDF for you to follow to break it down so that you can go through the steps as you want, as you need. And it really challenges you to kind of think about things. I use the concept of sound and music in this course because all origination comes from sound. Everything started with sound. And so when we use sound in a way to understand it when we're creating our future and connecting with our future self, it can be really powerful. So, and there's a whole other host of things that I put in this future self formula. It can be really helpful for you to really not just manifest what you want, but really own it. Own what it is that you want, because Pluto in Aquarius is really challenging us to go for our dreams, even if it means you're going to stand alone for a little bit while you go after it. And so my future self formula is in there. And also the meditation that I created for the solstice, I think is an extremely powerful meditation for you guys to have in your back pocket. The winter solstice one, the awakening, because this, for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, this period of winter that we've just entered is an extremely potent and powerful time for you to have your own transformation begin. This is where we sometimes think that because it's winter, everything's kind of dead, but it's not. There's so much life kind of teeming below the surface of ice and snow. And it's one of those parts of our journey where we're so called to go inward, to completely isolate ourselves from the outside world, go as deep within ourselves and tune into the own winter of our soul for what needs to be birthed next, what wants to be created in the years to come, in this year to come. And so I'm leaving the link for that meditation in there as well. And of course, don't forget, my 3-day 180 retreat is in May. So we are less than 5 months away. We're 4.5 months away. So if you want to come to that, please fill out the form so I can look at it and see if you're going to be a good fit for the retreat. So how I want to kind of go into this is understanding that Pluto is going to be forcing us as a society to change. But in order for the society to change, all of us need to also change, right? And it's going to change the way we process information, because a lot of what I've been seeing over, for sure, the last 5 years, but you know, the last 5, 10, 15 years, but more so now it's heightened because of the internet. Everything is super heightened. It's put on a fast track. Social media, everything is heightened. And we as a society tend to jump to conclusions, jump to what we think we understand is going on, just based off of maybe a little bit of information, limited information, whatever it might be. And I think what Pluto and Aquarius is going to be challenging us to do is to be a lot more thoughtful and give ourselves time to take in more information before we formulate our thoughts and our opinions. And this is something that I'm going to go into when I talk about this the Blake Lively case that has kind of come out. And I think it's just always interesting because I'm going to show you the chart of how, you know, we think we can get ahead of things. We know things. And I think that's another thing. That's another thing that I think is really going to be important. You think you know, but do you really know? And this idea of I need to know are going to be concepts that we're going to have to start getting a lot more comfortable with being uncomfortable with not knowing, if that makes any sense. Because what I've seen and I've understood over the years, and again, very, very guilty of this myself. So I'm not like trying to shame anyone out there. This is, I think, part of the journey, but we're evolving as a society. We're evolving quite rapidly, if you ask me. The changes have been astronomical since 2020. But think about even just the truther community, okay? Or the intuitive community, the spiritual community. Everyone just wants to know what's next. What is it? What's 2025 going to bring? What's going to happen when this happens? And people, of course, want to know it in their own life, which is why they book readings and all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes we can lean so heavily into it that it's like you almost want to know before you know. And is that always the smartest thing? I feel like what we're going to be having to really come to terms with is being okay not having all the details, being okay not knowing everything just yet, and starting to build a case for something slowly. And it's okay to not form a conclusion or form an opinion just yet when everyone is jumping to an opinion or a conclusion. This was something, when we look at this idea of needing to maybe go against the grain, because remember, Pluto represents your soul in an evolutionary astrology. And this is something that if you ever are getting your chart read from me, I will always be looking at your Pluto. It's one of the first things I look at. And Pluto, with it being in Aquarius, it means our souls. All of our souls are going through massive change that are going to be causing, what does Aquarius bring? Shock and awe, right? It's kind of like that quaking energy, lightning, earthquakes, sudden eruptions, like all of that change, because it's got that Uranus energy is kind of coming through. And so when we're perhaps wanting to do something that is so important to our soul, but yet we're so fearful of how others may interpret it or not be accepting of that. What does that mean we're going to face? That will maybe force you to not really follow through on it, or do it in hiding, or do it at a very limited scale. Pluto in Aquarius isn't going to allow for that to happen anymore. And I just want to say this as a total side note, because I've been wanting to say this. For any of you out there who are in the healing or spiritual industry when it comes to your work, your purpose, okay? Healing, spirituality, anything of that nature. Now is the time. This is your year to go all in, okay? Because with the North Node moving into Pisces, this is going to be forcing our collective to go outside of its comfort zone, to start seeking more spiritual connections, to start seeking deeper healing, transformation, meditation, facing our fears, facing our shame, our guilt. And this is where so many people are going to be called to that. So if you've had enough courage to set yourself up for that, I just want to let you know you're in for a good year and a half. The next 18 months with the North Node in Pisces, we're going to see this push of more people wanting to move into that industry. And if you've waited, get on it. This is your year to get on it. And Pluto in Aquarius is going to help you, whether you like it or not, start to break free of that kind of mold that you're maybe feeling stuck in. But when it comes to this idea of breaking free and doing the thing that you want to do, remember, Aquarius is always about the people. It's about the betterment of all, right? Not just one, but sometimes it's going to take one to break free to help many. One of let me go into how this kind of played out for me when Pluto was in Capricorn, because I had some major challenges in the first 7 to 10 years that Pluto was in Capricorn, because it was squaring my Mars and Venus, which are in Aries at 6 and 9 degrees. And it was also squaring my Pluto at 11 degrees of Libra. It also then squared my ascendant opposed my ascendant in Cancer. And then later on, once it got towards my North Node, squaring my North Node and my South Node, which I'm going to tell you what happened there. That is when I had to make a very, very important choice. And it affected a lot of things for me. But it was one of those things where Pluto always wants you to move towards the truth. If you always are for the truth, then even if the truth is uncomfortable, okay, because the truth is often uncomfortable. I think a lot of people, especially when they're in these truther communities, initially you're like, yeah, no, I want the truth and I'm for the truth. But then all of a sudden things might start challenging your own truth. And you're like, I don't know about that. Maybe not that, but this, yes, this I'm for, but that truth, not so much. You know, when Pluto was squaring the nodes, my nodes, which was around 22 to 25 degrees of Capricorn, was when I came out on my channel and offered an opportunity or a solution that may or may not work, because of course I can't say it would work for sure, but I knew it worked for me, was that if you were someone who had to get that shot, okay, in 2021, that there was a way to counter the effects of it. And so many people were so in uproar around me doing that because they felt like I was promoting it, which I wasn't. I was always like, if you don't have to get it, don't get it. Right? Like that's how I felt. But not everyone's in that position. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of my audience is US based. But when you don't live in a country like the US, where your rights are much more protected than other countries, you realize that you don't have as many liberties or things that are as easy. Now, that's not to say that you can't always stand up. Of course you can. There's always going to be consequences to that. And some people had to weigh their consequences. Some people had to weigh their consequences between being able to put food on the table for their children, and being able to pay for shelter over their children. And some people found other solutions that work for them where they didn't have to. And I think that's great. I really commend the people that were able to do that, but not everyone has that choice. And so for me, I know that in order for me to stay true to what I know what my soul was called to do, I had to get it. And that opened me up to another possibility. What was so difficult about that was I didn't know that there was, or at least I hadn't opened my mind to the possibility of, am I so powerful enough that I can change the chemical makeup of something external to me, that when it enters my body, it completely neutralizes? Am I even that possible? Am I even that powerful? And it forced me to start thinking, like, of course, if you take all of the external things out of the equation, people will say, yeah, if you take the whole shot out of the equation, you think like, yeah, we are so powerful, we can do anything. But as soon as I brought in that part into the equation, everyone was like, no, Nicole, no, you don't understand what's in this. No, I very well much understood what was in it. And I did not like it at all. But I'm like, what that did for me was that it taught me how to become a super mystic. And it forced me to face a fear of mine that I was like, okay, nothing outside of me is more powerful than me. And I wanted to teach others, but I knew that in order to teach others, I was going to have to tell my audience that I had to get it. And I knew that was going to cause an uproar, which it did. It caused a mass exodus out of my business, of clients and everything. But I knew that I had to stand up for what I believed to be so true in my heart, and I knew would help some. Even though it wasn't for everyone, I knew it would help some people. And that's Pluto in Aquarius energy. This is what so many of us are going to be forced to really face as we're going through the next 20 years is understanding that, are you willing to stand up for what you believe to be so true in your heart and you know you're so called to help people with, even when it means you're going to be much less favorable in the eyes of many who maybe you were favorable for? It's a very difficult position to be in. And so while Pluto was squaring my North Node and my South Node, is like, how am I always just going to be the peacekeeper, like South Node in Libra, right? Am I just going to like toe the line? Am I just going to like keep the peace, or am I going to go stand out on my own and say, no, like, I believe this works. And I know it does. So with that being said, that was a personal example for me. Not to mention, if any of you have got planets that are in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius right now, buckle up, okay? Because you're gonna be going through some challenges. Now, for me, I've already been through, I feel like, the worst of it. It's going to be squaring my Mercury in the next year or two, and then my Sun in about 7 to 10 years. That's not going to be nice. I'm not going to enjoy that one. But here's the thing. Pluto is always trying to make you a better version of yourself. And that means we have to face things that are difficult for us. And even when you think you're aiming for one of your dreams, there's still going to be things about you that don't align with that dream that you're going to have to change. And they won't be so obvious in the beginning. And so life is going to be laying itself out in front of you in a way where you're going to maybe hit a crisis point, maybe a few crisis points, to be quite fair, where you're going to be challenged. And it's basically Pluto saying, like, what have you got inside? Do you have it inside of you to do this? Because if you do, then you get this, because you're in a position to handle it now. Right now, you're not in the position to handle it, but I'm going to help mold you into the person that you're meant to be so that you can handle those challenges and be ready for the next set when you level up again. And that's something that, every time we're kind of pushing ourselves, this is why a lot of people will just stay where they're at. They're comfortable, because it just doesn't really mean that you're going to have to face the challenges, the crises head on in a really super imposed kind of way that you would if you went maybe kicking and screaming. You're eventually going to have to face something. You don't get to run away from it, but you also don't get out of the place that you want to get out of. Right? So it's like, which misery do I want? The long-term misery of stagnancy and just staying where I'm at and always knowing what I'm going to get, even though I don't like getting it? Or am I willing to go through a higher intensity of pain for a shorter period of time to get on the other side and move through it and then actually have my rewards? So Pluto in Aquarius is going to be really doing that for us. It's preparing you. It's preparing you for what you want the most, because what you want, even though you think you're ready for it, you may not be ready for it just yet. You have to go through almost like a gauntlet, right, of challenges and tribulations that are not there to make you go through and suffer. It's to make you stronger so that you're ready to handle what it is that you want for yourself. And so this is something that we're going to be facing. Now, when it comes to Pluto and Aquarius, yes, you're going to be maybe challenged to be a rebellion person in some way, a rebellious person. So the rebellion within you is going to come out in some form or fashion, okay? And I'm not saying like you got to go break laws, or I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about that, in some way you're going to have to rebel against something you've always been comfortable with, known to be true, people around you, situations, jobs, money, whatever, your health, whatever it's going to be. You're going to be challenged to like, okay, are you willing to maybe see a solution? Because this is what Aquarius is. Aquarius is very much solutions of the highest possible outcome, right? It's the higher mind. This is where genius can come in, this idea of lightning striking. So are you open to a form of genius solution to come in that initially may challenge you in such a way that you're like, no, that's not for me. That's not the right solution for me. This is where a lot of us are going to be challenged. Like, in order for us to progress, and we are going to progress at rates that are so unparalleled to anything any of us have lived through so far, is we're going to have to be so open-minded and so willing to see things from many different degree points of perspective than we've ever allowed ourselves to see before. And that means that truths are going to be challenged. Are they really true still? Because right now, you may have a truth in your life that you are so certain about, but what does Aquarian energy want to come? It wants to shake the foundation and show you a truth that's, I don't want to say, it's more encompassing, that really kind of blows apart everything that you thought to be true. And so that is something that we're going to be experiencing now. I believe that 2025 is just the beginning point of where, when it comes to the truth coming out globally, collectively, that I really believe, and I've been getting messages about this intuitively, that those who've been black-pilled, they're going to struggle probably the most, because they're so certain that things are never going to change. It's always going to be this and always going to be that. And that's a really dangerous place to be in, is the black-pilled area, where you just don't see any hope, only because it doesn't ever allow for change to come in. And Pluto is all about change. Okay, it's about power. It's about change. It's about regeneration. It's about crisis. And then you bring it into Aquarius, which is all about like breakdowns and breakthroughs, sudden shifts and changes, awe, shock. But at the same time, like technology, innovation, genius, all of those things, freedom. How free is your mind? How free is your mind? That is something that I think so many of us are going to be really looking at. And I don't mean free as in some kind of matrix imposing limitations on you. I mean down to you alone. How free is your mind? How free are you allowing yourself to think? And I just mean when it comes to your life, okay? Just wherever you're at in your life, whether there's certain relationships that, you feel stuck in, your job, your financial situation, your health situation, whatever it might be, how free is your mind when it comes to those things? Are you really allowing for more? This is something that is going to you're going to see a big shift, because we're all going to be forced to think differently. We're all going to be forced to allow for things to just enter into our mind. So that idea of the download coming in, right? This is going to be something that is more and more common for everyone, not just the select few of those who seem to have some sort of, soul contract or genetic makeup where they can bring in this genius. Like that's their purpose in this life. Well, in this particular next 20 years, so much of that is going to be more available to us to some degree. And so I want you guys to really think about, going into this year, but also the next 2 decades, how free is your mind truly? And then when it comes to this idea of liberation and individuation, because yes, Aquarian energy wants to see the betterment of all, right? Like, is this good for all of us, not just one? But in order for us to really see what's good for all, sometimes it takes a person to be rebellious, to break free of the mold. Can you, and I've said this before, and I know what this feels like, not just once, but twice in my life at very, very intense energies. Are you willing to stand alone to serve what it is in your heart you know to be so true and what it desires most. Okay, because we're all being guided to not just serve our dreams and our hopes, but to do so in a way that makes an impact positively on this world, right? And so can you step into that? Can you break free of whatever restrictions that, Capricorn, Saturn, and yes, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Uranus, but I also believe that, we're in the future where we now know there is a Uranus. So we can't dismiss Uranus's role in all of this. And so when you look at what it is that you want, what it is that you'd like to create, what it is that you want to open yourself up to, what's holding you back? What are you so afraid of receiving judgment, ridicule, perhaps being ostracized? And I get it. No one wants that. No one wants that. Trust me. If I could do it all over again and not have all that shit come my way, I would totally do that. But here's the other thing. Like, there's a certain amount of personal, and I'll say that there's a certain amount of personal pride I hold for myself for being able to withstand that and do that and know that, you know what, there may be something even more challenging down the road where if it comes up, I feel in my heart that I probably have the strength to endure it, and I will stand up for what's right and what's good, in what I believe to be so true in my heart. There's a certain, you're not owned when you do that. No one owns you. No one else's ideas own you. No one else's rules, so to speak, own you. It's very liberating. And that's what Aquarius energy wants to do. It wants to liberate us at the soul level Pluto energy. It wants to liberate you from for you to find your power, right? Find your power in a way that doesn't just allow you to break free, but allows others to break free. So when it comes to this idea of, when I had my guest on for the trials, what was it called? The 2025, he called it the year of trials, was it? I don't know. I think that was it. And there's so much truth to that because the way things are after having so much experience of how Pluto can force change on you of what I've just gone through in the last 15 years of Pluto and Capricorn, because it hit my ascendant, my Venus, my Mars, and my nodes, and my Pluto hard, and all together all at once almost, because they were so close together. That was the time in my life, just so you guys know, when I was dating someone, when I still lived in the Cayman Islands, and he was an alcoholic, but, I didn't realize that. I just, the culture down there is very different when it comes to drinking. The line of what is alcoholic and not is very skewed and pushed the other way. And I was going through one of the most difficult and traumatic periods of my life that I actually only am now in this last year or two realizing how traumatic that was for me. The level of abuse I underwent for 3 years in my home, because we lived together for almost the full 3 years, is when I see how it all played out and what I went through, it was. And of course it happened in my Pluto, Capricorn, Cancer ascendant, my relationship house, right? So it was my partners were forcing me to go through this crisis mode and are you ready to stand up for yourself? Are you ready to say no? And that was, even to this day, I didn't realize how much that had, it absolutely transformed me in so many great ways, but it also scared the shit out of me to get into another relationship. And I didn't realize how scared I was, because I'll tell you, all it took was a hint of a red flag waving, waving its little red flag, maybe just above the sand. Like, I don't know, like as soon as I saw like a little red, I was like, no, out of here. Like not going to do that. And that wasn't healthy either, because we all have our own red flags. We're all working through stuff. Like, of course, yeah, you don't want to like go like along a train of red flags, but it was showing me how I had to, and of course, now that Pluto's left that area of my chart, I am in such a better place and I've completely transformed. But it was a hard and difficult period where I had to undergo such emotional terrorism in my own home. No one else knew what I was going through, the level of abuse that even I didn't realize how much I was being abused. When you're in it, you don't even realize how much you're being abused. Because you always see the good. Like for me too, I'm someone who always wants to see the better and the good in people, and I always tried to see like the good in him. And that was, something I had to learn. Like, just because you can see good in people doesn't mean they're good for you. Okay? Like, that was a hard ass lesson. Just because you can see good in people doesn't mean they're good for you. And that was something that I had to really get straight with myself. And so Pluto coming into Aquarius is definitely going to change that. So why don't I what I want to do is I want to show you guys this. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the, and I'm using this just because it's got a really cool chart example so you guys can kind of see. But the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, I think it's Justin Baldoni, kind of case where the movie about domestic violence that Blake was in, and she underwent like back in August of 2020, this year, she underwent a lot of scrutiny, and people were she's basically getting canceled because she had mean girl energy in a lot of videos that were surfacing, and everyone was really kind of supporting Justin and saying, all these different things. And it's now just recently come to light with all the documents being released of her suing. I think she's suing Justin Baldoni right now, and showing that a lot of people thought, well, she's a big star. She's got a lot of power. She's just using it. She like whatever. But actually his friend, who also was producing this or ownership of somehow, he's a billionaire. He's got billions and billions of dollars, way more money than Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, put together. And they were crafting behind the scenes a massive smear campaign against her, because what was going on, she was being forced, now that the documents are coming out, she was being forced to do things once she got signed on, to orgasm on screen, to have people were allowed into the scenes where she was naked, to be just there standing while her legs are basically open and just a small piece of cloth covering her genitals. She had people just walking into her dressing room while she was breastfeeding. She was shown like nudity videos and all this other stuff. Like, the amount of what is in those accusations is so disgusting, of what she had to endure. And how, of course, I know so many of you in my community, we understand how corrupt Hollywood is, right? We know it's a dark entity in its own. And yeah, sure, the Me Too movement came up and it kind of exposed some of that. But what I think is really we're seeing now, it's not so much about the Me Too, it's more about just the abuse of power in general over both men and women. And this particular case, so I think he's in for a world of hurt. So let me just show you his chart. So this is Justin Baldoni's chart, okay? Now you can see here he is a Virgo ascendant at 16 degrees. His ascendant's there. But here's some things I want you to look at. One, his Pluto is at 2 degrees of Scorpio. Currently, where is Pluto right now? It's at Aquarius, 1 degree, right? I think it's at 1 degree. And he's getting ready to have his Pluto square. I know what my Pluto square was like, and I'm not even close to involved in the shit that he's involved in. Okay, so having that square coming in, his Pluto getting squared, is saying that no, one, your Pluto's in Scorpio. So like, I know those of you, I think there was like maybe 10 years where those of you who are able to have Pluto in Scorpio, but like that's, yes, it's its home sign, but it can go one of two ways, right? It can be extremes where it can be very like shamanistic, transformational, all this kind of stuff. But then it can also go into like big abuse of power and like hidden darkness and that kind of stuff because it rules the underworld. And so, he is coming up to a world of hurt with just alone having his Pluto square Aquarius. And this is what, if you look in P. Diddy's chart, I've seen different people, because no one really knows the timing of his chart, but I've seen someone do it where I believe they use the right methods to actually hone in on his time. And if they did correctly, his Mars is at 29 degrees of Capricorn, which is what Pluto has been kind of going over. Mars, first of all, for you guys, Mars at 29 degrees, any planet at 29 degrees is going to have the Pluto energy in it. It's that anaretic degree. It's about crisis and rebirth. It's about like, you just don't know where you're going to end up when you go on the other side. So the fact that his Mars is perpetually at 29 degrees, obviously of Capricorn, means that his Mars is susceptible to the underworld. His Mars, which again, Mars traditionally rules Scorpio, but Mars is all about conflict, and it's all about, it's about war. It's about, sometimes it can be abuse of your own strength and things of that nature. And so that's why I don't think P. Diddy is either going to be, I don't think he's in for any kind of exoneration or mistrials or anything like that. I think he's in for a world of hurt and anyone connected to him. I'm telling you guys, I just think that we're coming up to the time where we've all been waiting for. We've all been like, we've been waiting. And for those of us who've been more awakened for longer periods of time, where we've just been seeing the same story, the hope, only for it to be dashed, I really, truly believe that whole cycle is ending with Pluto going into Aquarius, because it's just, Pluto just won't allow for it, won't stand for it. And so not only is Pluto now squaring his Pluto, look how close it's getting to his sun at 4 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto going over your sun. Your sun represents your identity. It represents your energy, like it's your vitality, right? It also can represent your career, right? Whenever you guys listen to my all signs, which by the way is coming out in 2 days, this is when something can drastically happen with Pluto wants to go in there and bring you into the underworld, tear it all down, like pull it apart and force you to get really real and look at the truth of something. Well, I think his career is up for a lot of pain as well. Okay. A lot of pain and crisis. So then that alone, those two things alone are pretty intense. Okay. But not only that, look at his moon. His moon is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, which means it's also, while this is all happening, his moon is going to get squared by Pluto. So moon represents females. Moon is the feminine, right? And so this is interesting how like his moon, his understanding of his understanding of women, but also his own inner world, his own needs, his own hidden like stuff, that's all getting challenged by Pluto. So all of that's going to be like that is not an easy transit as well. So now you have Pluto squaring Pluto, natal Pluto, natal moon, also about to go over his sun. But then also look, he's not out of the woods. Just when he starts to get away from his Pluto and his moon, Mars is sitting here waiting to get squared by Pluto. All like, it's just, and then he's got to deal with Saturn after that. Okay. And then while it's going over Pluto, look at this, while Pluto is squaring his Mars, it's going to go over his black moon Lilith. Okay. And what is Black Moon Lilith? That is our sexual desires. That is the feminine, that is like the sexual prowess. But it's also about liberating, being not stuck in the patriarchy of ideas, but it's very much about that dark sexual energy. He's in for like a world of hurt. And this is why I'm saying, like, when I see charts of these people who are actually going to be, who are potentially going to trial or already in trial, it's like, I'm starting to see, like, I know what I went through, and I'm nowhere near involved in any kind of stuff like this. So I can only imagine if you're involved in really dark stuff where there's a lot of hidden secrets. Okay. Like, that is terrifying. Like, for me to even just think about knowing what I've been through. So this is how I know he's in for a world of hurt, So, he's just like, I mean, the next, I would say 15 to 20 years for him is truly, not going to be good. So, and rightfully so. You can't do shit like that and get away with it. And this is what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be seeing the truth and justice finally coming forward. Pluto and Aquarius won't stand for anything but the truth. And if you are in the truth, then you will survive. You will not just survive, but then also thrive. Now, when it comes to the truther community, because I did promise that I would talk about this on this video, I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are aware to this to some degree, but the truther community is definitely, has some amazing people in it. Amazing people. Like, people I really respect. But it also has some con artists or people who are just out for it for themselves, looking to capitalize on your good intentions. Okay. And not only that, but when we have a world that is based on social media, of how we're getting all of our information. Like, let's face it, social media is probably the number one way that most of us are getting our information, whether it's through YouTube, whether it's through X, whether it's through TikTok, Instagram, all other different kinds of platforms. It's going to a large degree to be to social media. And it's about, like, okay, obviously, the more, if you build your own platform on one of those platforms, like I have here on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, you can build a following, which for me and my business is very helpful, right? It's very helpful. But when I started it, it wasn't from the place of, well, I want to have a huge following. It was more from, like, I want to start talking about the things that I've not allowed myself to have conversations about because I've been so scared about being judged by my friends and family, that maybe if I just kind of go on YouTube and start talking about it, I knew that no one in my family or my friends were on YouTube or would find me or would follow me on YouTube. And so to me, it was kind of like a safe entry point. And so for me, it was like all about that. And I was like, oh, maybe I can turn this into a business too. And so, and rightfully so, that's my purpose. My purpose is doing the work that I do. I'm fucking really good at it. And I won't like dim my own light just to be humble. Because I've worked really hard to get to where I'm at. And if I didn't think I was that good, then people shouldn't be working with me, like that's the whole thing. But, like, to get to that place, you've got to go through a lot of challenges and you've got to be confronted with things. And I had to be confronted with stuff that was like, oh man, okay, like if I say this, fuck, like, am I going to like have an exodus of people on my channel, my business, whatever? And I knew I would. It was a no-brainer. That was definitely going to happen. But it still went through with it. Now, I have a lot of good relationships with people who have much bigger platforms than I do. have much bigger followings than I do. And it is a choice to not air everything out. The reason why I aired mine out was because I knew I had a solution that could help others. That was where it was all coming from. And I was like, I can't in good conscience keep this to myself to preserve a facade on my channel and not offer this help to people, because I knew that's what my purpose was. My purpose was literally mystical, spiritual, energetic healing, right? And helping people empower themselves. So I'm like, how do I get it? I can't. And Pluto wouldn't let me. Pluto on my North Node was like, no, girl, like you either if you stay in your comfort zone, sure, but you're not gonna, it's gonna come back to bite you, right? And so I know people that were like, no, I talked to quite a few people who had larger YouTube channels than I did, and they knew what I was going to come out with. And they were like, no, I can't. My audience would just disown me. Like people with hundreds of thousands of followers. And, I don't think any less of them. We all make our choices, right? But understand that what people came down on me for was the very thing so many of us are fighting for. The truth isn't always comfortable. In fact, it rarely ever is. That's why we avoid it. And I know to this day that there are people who, if their audience members knew the stuff that I know, would be in uproar. But, it's not for me to say on my channel. That's none of I would never do that. That is not my place in this world. Everyone makes their choices and they get to live with those choices. But what I do believe is going to be happening in the next 20 years is the people that are in the truther community, that have either not been willing to speak up or say the things that are the hardest, there's going to be some kind of challenge for them to face. There's going to be some kind of exposure in some way, whether it's a choice of self-revelation or something else. There's going to be people that you're going to see that have been not in good faith, delivering you information that has only been to keep you in some kind of cycle loop for clicks, for ad spend, for whatever. That's all going to get exposed as well. That's all going to get exposed. So be prepared to be in shock or awe by some of the people that you maybe respect or like a lot. Not just the people are bad people. And I want to say this, it's not that all the people that are going to maybe get reveal things are bad people. Absolutely not. But it's going to shock you at first, right? I believe in redemption. I believe in second chances. I believe in righting a wrong. I believe in all of that, because if I didn't, then my work would be meaningless. It would be absolutely meaningless. But just be prepared for that. Now, when that happens, I'm going to now offer you some information and advice that maybe sounds counterintuitive. Don't go writing them off. Okay? Don't necessarily write that person off, because one, it takes a lot of courage, especially if someone's coming forward. It takes a lot of courage for someone to come forward, or to be under some kind of magnifying glass. Now, does that mean that there's not some sort of consequence to that? No, but I'm a firm believer of letting the universe come in with the consequences, and all that. I don't feel like it's my job in this life to be the judge, juror, and executor, right? I'm more of the belief, just focus on your own stuff, Nicole, and stay in your lane and just do what you do best, But it's going to come forward. All I'm going to say too is be open-minded enough to not necessarily just keep giving people passes, but to challenge your own self. How can I understand this at a deeper level? Maybe some people were going through certain things that you weren't aware of that contributed to that. And we're all human. We all have the liberty of making our own free will choices, right? Like, for instance, while some people had to maybe take the thing in order to keep money, coming in to feed their children or keep food on the table or whatever. I know people who agreed with me behind the scenes, but wouldn't share that with their audience. Why? Because they had to put food on their table. So, but like there was this side of polarization. Well, if you do that, you're wrong. Well, if you do that, you're wrong. And it's like, we kind of have to pull back on the reins of this polarization of 100% right and 100% wrong, and understand that, at the end of the day, the majority of us are just doing the best that we know how, given the circumstances and tools that we have. Does that mean we all get a pass? No. Does it mean we don't face consequences? No. But it doesn't mean that we have to face like some of the shittiness of like the shame and the cancellation and the outrage, like saying like really awful, mean things online, which a lot of people just seem to feel comfortable doing so, which I don't understand, because I would never even say that in real life. Like, I would never go up to someone and say some of the shit that I've seen in some of my comments or other people's comments. And I'm like, wow, like for me, it's a rule of thumb. If I wouldn't say it out loud to someone in real life, I'm not going to say it online, but I challenge you to, as we're kind of coming up to this, because what we have to do is we have to come together, right? We have to all know that we all have our flaws. We all have our differences. We all see things differently. And that's what makes us beautiful, but it also means like, can we see that someone did something wrong? But just because someone did something wrong doesn't mean that they're a wrong person, right? Like, we all make choices. Like, I've done bad things in my life. Does that mean I'm a bad person? Like I know that the good certainly outweighs the bad, but sometimes in our society, we love to like just grab the thing that's like the worst or the bad thing and then just like blow it up into the spotlight and feast on it. It's like we feast on this idea. And that is something I think Pluto and Aquarius is also going to be transforming in us as a collective, where we have to be more open-minded, not to give a pass, but to get more information, to look at things from all different views and perspectives, to understand that, yes, at the end of the day, we want change, but Aquarius is all for humanity, and we have to preserve our own humanity within us in order to do what's best for all. So knowing that we're all going to make mistakes, we all like don't always get it right. We all have bad days. And when I say that, I don't say compare that to say what, someone like P. Diddy is doing. Okay. I'm just saying like on the general level of just us being humans and trying to do the thing in life, right? Like that is something I truly see coming in. Now, remember that at the end of the day, when you take everyone else out of the equation, it's just you. Pluto will want you to really understand the power of your future visions, the power of your dreams, and what you stand to gain from that if you have the courage to be willing to stand alone if you need to. Not everyone's going to, but if you need to. And again, if you are going to stand alone, it probably isn't going to be for a very long time. What I've seen is most people do come around, or they do see the light in different ways. I think that's most of us, we see the error in our ways. We see how we maybe jumped to conclusions or got it wrong. And so with Aquarius ruling traditionally the 11th house, it is also about your gains from your career, okay? Like your long-term gains, like windfalls of money, that kind of stuff. And so I'm saying this because also think about what you're capable of receiving if you're willing to face Pluto's gauntlet that sure will likely bring some form of crisis. But what's on the other side when it comes to maybe your career or your purpose, your work, all of that kind of stuff? Because this is where you're going to get rewarded. This is where, like, collectively with the energies of Pluto and Aquarius, we can all be rewarded for that. And it's like, well, if you're really truly willing to do what is the truth, face the truth of yourself, what's true within you, not stop hiding the truth. We all hide truth to some degree, okay, in our lives. That doesn't mean it's nefarious, okay? It's just like, it's self-preservation of deep down. What do we all want to? We all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved, appreciated, right? Recognized. Like some of those basic things, the basic ones of just, I want to be accepted. So Pluto's going to really challenge you on facing that truth within you of, are you willing to do what you want most, even if it means you won't be accepted at first? Even if you won't be accepted at first. Because remember, what looks like on the outside isn't always true of what's on the inside. This idea of judging books by its covers, of what you see, like, whether it's like you look at someone, you look at their life online and you think, oh my God, maybe they have a ton of followers, maybe they have, or maybe they just, like, their whole life looks amazing, or maybe it doesn't look so great. But the truth of what appears on the surface, like, Pluto wants to go right down to the depths and pull it right up to the top. So when it comes to you following yourself, like, do what you know you are called to do in this world. That, and again, it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be this massive scale. Like, I need to make some crazy impact on the world. Like, your world is your world. It doesn't have to be the world for everyone. You could impact just, a few souls around you in ways that are going to leave a legacy behind that you don't even realize you're doing. This is something that, when I think of Aquarius, I think of legacy in some way. And what's your legacy that you are willing to stand up alone for and maybe rebel against the status quo for the betterment of all, like the betterment of more? And that's something that, we're going to see. You guys stay so open to possibilities. Again, if there's anything I can say, like, really use this as maybe like something that you repeat to yourself over and over, a question that you maybe ask yourself, whether it's once a day, once a week, like, how free is my mind? And I'll take that down to the idea of, like, how free is my mind to receive what it is that I know I deserve to receive? Like, whether it's a certain amount of money, a certain amount of love, a certain amount of health. Like, how free is my mind to really allow for the maximum amount of liberation to come in? This is something that I know we're all going to be challenged, because it's our higher mind. And this means it's the higher self, it's God coming in to guide you. So it's like, how do I open myself up and allow myself to really move and trust, to make the choices, to act, to be, to speak, to think in the ways that are coming from that higher place, which then allows for, I promise you, when you do this, when your mind becomes more and more free, the downloads increase dramatically. The solutions to your problems will come so rapidly. It's like surrendering to the most ultimate expansion, where the mind loves to condense and have like its little pathways, its little neural pathways is going to go down and go down. Like, can you keep opening up and making new neural pathways that are like better and bigger and longer and whatever and faster? You know, like constantly be ready to go through a lot of change. In essence, to liberate yourself. So I, just to close it off here, I truly believe that we're going to be seeing a lot of shocking things coming up. Some of us are prepared for it. But even those of us who are prepared for some of those shocks, there will be other things that shock us. I don't think any of us are going to escape this Pluto and Aquarius transit, nor should you, nor should I. The boat needs to be rocked heavily here. So it's going to be a very shocking year. It's going to be one of those, like, I don't understand what's going on. What the hell? Like, it'll feel like everything could be falling apart. And then all of a sudden, like, it all makes sense and solutions are there and you're starting to see the better world. It'll be like that. And yes, I do believe with Pluto in Aquarius, opposed Mars in Cancer in a few days. Mars will go back into Cancer. This is what's so interesting about this whole Pluto and Aquarius. Because I believe that this definitely ties in the whole like UAPs, UFOs, drones, all of that kind of stuff. I've been saying to you guys for months now, that the Mars in Cancer is going to create this feeling of like domestic protection, like wanting to maybe bring up this idea. For some people it'll be like patriotism, right? But what I actually think on a much bigger scale is it's going to be fuck the countries. It's the Earth. It's our planet. And it's got a much more powerful, higher tech entity opposing us trying to protect our land. Okay? This is why I think we're going to have contact this coming year in 2025. Because for Mars to be retrograde at this point is a very, very rare thing, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Like this is not something that happened maybe 500 years ago, 1,000. Like this is not something that's happened like in thousands of years. And so I really do feel like it's going to be an interesting time. Shock and awe. What is Aquarius? Aquarius is the sky. It's an air sign, but it's the highest of the air signs, right? It's the higher. So Pluto's like, the power is up here. The power is up here, and we're going to be on land trying to fight, like defend and, whatever. And of course, like, for most of my listeners, we're like, cool, like, yay, like we've been waiting for this, but not everyone's going to be like that, right? And who knows how it's all going to come down. But that's going to be something that I think is for sure. This particular transit is, to me, solidifying why I think, on top of like the intuitive and psychic visions I've been shown, that I think 2025 is going to be the year. So we've been waiting a long time for it. We'll see, but that's what I believe. So, let me just say hi to everyone. Field of Theaters, Kim, Mind Matters, Maddie. So good to see you guys. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I want to wish you all a very, very happy New Year's. For those of you who maybe it's already New Year's for you, if you're listening to this right now, you're in the other side of the world. But I want to say again, I want to extend my gratitude to all of you who supported me in whatever ways, whether it's just a like on this video, which please hit the like button, drop a comment. All of those little things are like one of the easiest and most fun ways for you guys to support me. But I just the emails, the comments. If you've worked with me, if you currently are working with me, like I just want to say thank you so much. Not only for supporting me, but for allowing me to be part of your journey. I think that's one of the biggest gifts of the work that I do is I get to walk through a door that not many get to enter through and come through in people's some of their most vulnerable moments. And I cherish and I honor that so deeply. So thank you so much. I love you guys. Have an amazing New Year's. Be safe tonight if you're going out and getting a little rowdy. Make sure you do it safely. And 2025, let's rock into it. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be, like I said with Consuelo, expect extremes. It's going to be some really high highs and some really fucked up lows. It's going to be a WTF kind of first half of the year for sure. But I know that the second half of the year is definitely going to be better. It doesn't mean there's not going to be good things in the first part of the year, right? But just know that it's probably going to be a little more like, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be really bumpy, but I love roller coasters. I'm down for it. It's fun. There's a thrill. Let's go for the ride, right? Let's do it. So guys, I love you. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you guys for all signs on